left.
Hey, Sue, 2 unidentified aircraft just popped up on the scope. Here, take a look. What is it?
Better call 9-4 and warn them.
Aircraft 94, please advise. We got 2 unidentified aircraft on the scope and they're headed right for you. It's no plane. That's a... Hold on, Jimmy.
Whatever they are, they're headed downtown. Better get the mayor on the phone, and quick.
Look, over there.
Hi, remember me? The last time we were together, we were in Philadelphia, looking at innovative ways to improve scanning and verify an aircraft's position, which are the A and the S of BASIC. Does anybody remember what BASIC stands for?
B, be sure the runway is open.
A, aircraft position verified.
S, scan the runway.
I, issue clearances using correct phraseology.
C, close the loop by getting an accurate readback.
Excellent. Okay, let's talk about communication. It's the single most important factor in the pilot-controller relationship. Language barriers, speech rate, message length, and content can contribute to the breakdown of communications. Both pilots and controllers can work towards improving communications by getting back to the basics. This training focuses on I, issue clearances using correct phraseology, and C, close the loop by getting an accurate readback. Dr. Kim Cardosi of the Volpe National Transportation System Center conducted an analysis of tower controller pilot voice communications. The purpose of her study was to examine ways to improve communication practices between pilots and controllers. The study evaluated 49 hours of voice recordings consisting of 11,000 transmissions from 10 different control towers. The study identified several factors that may contribute to ineffective communications, such as confusion between operations on right and left runways, confusing taxi instructions, pilots responding to transmissions intended for other aircraft, similar call signs, and a reluctance to use standard phraseology. Dr. Cardosi's analysis suggests that simple changes in current practices could reduce the risk of communication errors. Controllers should be aware of their speech rate. Transmissions should be simple to understand. Instructions that contain more than 3 control elements are more susceptible to error. Controllers should listen for the call sign as well as the content of the pilot's readback, and advise pilots of similar call signs. Call signs which contain 3 or more common digits are particularly prone to confusion. Call sign prefixes should never be omitted. Pilots are encouraged to ask for clarification rather than expect controllers to catch a readback error. Pilots need to use their call signs to acknowledge transmissions. These practices, along with heightened awareness, can reduce communication error and increase safety.
Malaysian 94 heavy and service localizer 24 left. Tower morning China S5 83 heavy, IS 24 right establish. Cross 24 left, get 103.
As international travel continues to increase, the potential for miscommunications between controllers and foreign pilots is also on the rise. Language barriers like dialect differences, heavy accents, and improper terminology heightens message complexity and controller workload.
At many of our busy international airports, like here at LAX, safely dealing with these language concerns is part of the daily routine. Successful communications require awareness and diligence on the part of the controller. ICAO, the International Civil Aviation Organization, recognizes the importance of improving communications between pilots and controllers. ICAO has introduced a new standard which recognizes the use of the English language and ICAO phraseology. Beginning January 1st, 2008, all air traffic controllers and flight crew members engaged in or in contact with international flights must be proficient in the English language and must demonstrate minimum proficiency requirements to meet ICAO standards for licensing. Members of ICAO know that terminology can hinder communications as significantly as language barriers.
Steps have been taken to eliminate possible confusion caused by using similar terms for different actions. For example, internationally, the ICAO phrase taxi to holding position has been changed to taxi to holding point, eliminating confusion with the phrase position and hold as utilized by air traffic control personnel within the FAA.
The most common complaint from pilots concerning communications is a controller's speech rate.
Speaking too fast can make radio transmissions difficult to understand. Controllers must ensure that they are speaking at a rate that will get the message across without requiring the message to be repeated.
Speaking at a normal rate and saying what only needs to be said is ideal. Hesitations and rambling can be confusing.
Vocal pauses such as and can negatively affect communication. Speech should be clear and concise. Use standard phraseology in the proper and anticipated sequence. Always know what you are going to say before you key the mic, and once keyed, use a slight pause to ensure that your first word is not cut out. Speak clearly and confidently without hesitation, using a normal tone of voice. Listen before transmitting. Don't assume that you already know what the pilot will say. Focus your attention on pilot readbacks, especially during critical operations such as hold short and runway crossing instructions.
Hey, thanks for watching my stuff. There's lots of facilities out there doing great things to improve phraseology and eliminate readback errors. Santa Barbara Tower has some best practices worthy of sharing.
With 3 intersecting runways and a foreign pilot training school utilizing the airport, proper phraseology and accurate readbacks are paramount to Santa Barbara's air traffic control. To ensure these standards are met and practiced, Santa Barbara has implemented several programs that we believe are best practices. The facility participates in at least 3 pilot controller meetings a year, emphasizing communications. Santa Barbara Tower has used innovative website methods to improve communications. One of the areas on the website posted examples of communication errors made by controllers and pilots. The purpose is not to point out who made the error, but for examining ways that errors can be minimized or eliminated. Because there is a pilot school that trains foreign pilots at nearby Bakersfield, controllers in Santa Barbara have found it necessary to develop methods to work through issues surrounding language barriers. They developed a data block entry identifying student pilots that have difficulty in the area of ATC communications. The school is very active, and on most days there are student pilots in the Santa Barbara traffic pattern. Controllers have learned to speak clearly, slowly, and deliberately to ensure that their instructions are understood. Santa Barbara, as observed through facility audits, has been identified as having a strong safety culture. The importance and priority placed on safety is immediately apparent to new employees from the moment they walk through the door. Controllers openly and readily share their ideas and techniques for improving safety. Since everyone is highly involved in the orientation and training of new employees, they take a lot of pride in doing things right. They strive to ensure safety while providing an excellent service. Peer pressure continues to reinforce the safety culture. Phraseology is an important element of the employee's training. This is reinforced through Santa Barbara's requirement that each developmental successfully complete 2 tape talks prior to certification on any position. A facility design critique form allows controllers to be rated in different areas during tape talks. The critique form, along with the tape, is then routed through the staff to the facility manager. Later, the same critique form is utilized during a controller's annual tape talk to review and discuss specific ways that phraseology can be improved.
Another area of concern in pilot-controller communication is a pilot's readback and a controller's hearback.
Readbacks confirm that the instructions given by the controller will be understood and followed.
Controllers can get into a bind if their expectation of what a pilot's response will be prevents them from hearing what is actually said.
The redundancy in the readback-hearback process closes the communication loop.
A final example of communication error stems from similar sounding words and numbers.
To reduce the potential for communication errors, pilots and controllers should always use standard phraseology. Using alphanumerics like 9er versus 9 are effective in eliminating errors. Also important is voice inflection, used to emphasize key elements of a transmission.
Maintain 3000, expect flight level 370.
Radio communications are the vital link between pilot and controller. It's the primary tool for the exchange of information, as well as providing safety. In air traffic control, we must rely totally on verbal communications to understand and be understood.
Use of standard phraseology enhances safety and is a quality of a professional air traffic controller. It seems obvious that standard phraseology should always be used.
Don't allow complacency to creep into your daily practices.
One of the worst disasters in aviation history, Tenerife, 1977, was due in part to miscommunication. The accident occurred during poor visibility and involved 3 parties, 2 Boeing 747 crews and 1 air traffic controller. Without visual contact, radio communication was the only link to ensure separation. The transfer of information between pilots and the controller was insufficient. After receiving clearance to their destination, KLM, waiting on the runway, and hearing what they wanted to hear, believed they were also cleared for takeoff and advised, "We're now at takeoff." The controller did not verify the readback and responded with an OK, believing KLM was still holding in position. The controller then tried to verify the position of Pan Am, using the call sign Papa Alpha for the first and only time. This prevented KLM from being alerted to the fact that Pan Am was still back-taxiing on the runway. A subsequent transmission by Pan Am stating, "We're still taxiing down the runway," was blocked and not heard by KLM or the controller.